Hello everybody and welcome to and back to Level 30 Games. Today we're going to be looking at another Wii U port and a doozy at that with my take on Super Mario 3D World with the new edition of Bowser's Fury. In fact, if you're a returning player and looking just for thoughts on Bowser's Fury, check the timestamps below to jump to that section of the video. Without further ado,
let's go!
We hope you take a minute to like this video and subscribe to our channel as well. It means the world to us to have you along our journey as a busy adult gamer. Let's kick it off with some thoughts on 3D World first, coming from somebody who was a level or two away from 100%ing the original release back in 2013. And it's important to understand that perspective because at first glance, controller in hand, ready to defeat Bowser yet again, this game rules. The level design is fun and varied and has this quasi-open worldness to it that is fitting of the title 3D World. It's not quite like or close to Super Mario Odyssey, but it's not as restrictive as, say, a traditional 2D Mario game like New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. It retains the single focus, get to the end of the level without dying while trying to nab all the optional collectibles of the latter, but keep some of the roaming and exploration of the former. Less open world and more open diorama. You can move about, but it's a little constricting. The adjustment to the style was quick and painless, however, and before long I was hopping and jumping parkour style, moving through each level like a base jumping god. Mario games, in my opinion, have always prided themselves on the tightest of tight controls, and 3D World is no exception. The characters move fast and freely, every jump, good and bad, a reflection of your skill, and the occasional bit of luck. If you're like me, then once the comfort sets in, Mario becomes a non-stop running machine to get to the end as quickly as possible. And I did do the panic jump, wall climb, hit an enemy, panic jump some more, only to land safely a few times. Each time felt chaotic and crazy and exhilarating, of course. The series continues the tradition of mistakes being on the player entirely, sort of. And I say sort of because I have two gripes with this game and the diorama style setup. For one, camera controls are limited to a small rotation to fixed left and fixed right perspectives. There is not 360-degree camera control here. The game does a good job of setting the camera just right for almost every level, however, to the point where I almost forgot I had the option to move it at all. This made some areas of levels extra challenging. For example, any section where you had to run along a narrow plank or strip of ground. Traditional 3D Mario games, I'd move that camera directly behind him and press up on the joystick, making sure I did not fall off a ledge. However, that's not always an option here. The second big gripe I have with the style might be more of a reflection of my skill as a whole, so take this with a grain of salt, but Mario attacking enemies in 3D has always been an issue for me. Trying to jump on a Goomba, let's say, usually resulted in a missed attack and an enemy hit. The 3D platforming and design of the levels is outstanding, but attacks is not. The classics return, of course, like the Mushroom, Fire Flower, Tanuki Tail, and more, with a few other new notables. The Double Cherry, for instance, which clones Mario, provides some really interesting level designs, as well as opportunities to hide collectibles. The cat suit, that Nintendo had plastered all over the marketing materials, pulls a lot of the weight though, and is clearly the best power-up to have. You can dive angularly, climb walls, attack enemies, all with almost too much ease. It doesn't break the game per se, but it makes it a tad easier at times. It's also insanely helpful for nabbing the optional green stars in stamps in each level. So say there's a green star that you can see but can't quite get to because you need the catsuit. You may have to find one in a previous level and then move through that current level, avoiding any hits before you would need to use it. It made a second playthrough a little more stressful and challenging in that regard, which was nice, as Nintendo games have always been great at scaling themselves to multiple experience levels. 3D World is no exception. Now that challenge is key, because I will admit that the levels as a whole, as insanely creative as they are not the most difficult, especially early on. Experienced gamers are going to breeze through the first 5 or 6 worlds without batting an eyelash. I was able to get 100% completion through World 4 and most of World 5 before even having to replay levels to get additional collectibles I didn't get on my first time through. World 6 and 7 pick up the challenge slowly, and beyond that it does get a little tough up into the final boss. But it's the bonus levels beyond that that get ridiculously challenging and will cause their fair share of frustrated restarts. The emotional highs I felt in completing these levels were worth it though, as each attempt got better and better. Multiplayer is going to extend your time with this game, although I feel even that comes with a caveat, as skill level discrepancy between players can really hinder the enjoyment for everybody. Remember, everybody shares the same screen, so if you are diverting for a secret and a player goes too far ahead towards a goal, you'll be bubbled towards them. Talented players won't want to wait for those who are struggling, and people who aren't as good won't want to be picked up and carried through the levels, literally, stripping them of doing things themselves. 2 players is fun, 4 players is hectic, and while online is a nice option now for the Switch version, local co-op is where it's at. Yelling and screaming to one another, being able to communicate effectively is much more fun. If you're all on the same page skill-wise, it's a crazy frantic death race to the end first, and in that regard, multiplayer is a blast. For parents playing with young kids, be ready to exercise some patience. The other side to multiplayer is that you may not end up playing as a character you're not used to. Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, and Toad are all available in single player, but in multiplayer, you can't double up. There can't be 2 Marios. So after playing most of my single player time with the evenly attributed Mario, being forced to use another character who runs, jumps, and controls slightly differently was a disadvantage. Before switching to Bowser's Fury, I just want to add special acknowledgement to the level design and music. I talked about the open diorama style, but honestly, it really does feel that each level is distinct and different from the one that came before it, even within the same world. Variety here is amazing and is Nintendo at peak design. The music is also, I think, one of the best Mario soundtracks to come along in some time as well. Between callbacks to games of yore like Mario 64, Mario Bros. 3, or Super Mario Kart for the SNES, each track is a joy to listen to and complements the game so well. If you're just coming into this game for the Bowser's Fury mode, here's a little bit of what you need to know, as the game does a lackluster job explaining exactly what the heck is happening when you start. You're dropped into a new, fully 3D world after a simple story interlude, and then, well, that's about it. The game doesn't really direct you much at first, and it took a few laps around to figure out how the world itself even works. There are different areas of the world which act as their own independent levels without the need to load into each one specifically, which was nice. So if the main 3D World game is a diorama, then Bowser's Fury is more of a giant playground, with each world acting like a small jungle gym inside of it. Each island has multiple objectives that get added as you move through it, similarly to how Mario 64 has different stars to get, even if the world itself remains mostly the same. And I say mostly because, like Mario 64, there will be small changes made for each objective. Enemies might appear who weren't there before, a collect-all blue coin switch might reveal itself, or you'll see a cat shine in a locked cage indicating you need to search for a key to unlock it. It was really unclear at first how this progression system works, and it took a bit of playing before it all clicked together. When it finally did, it felt cool for a second, but at the same time it also felt like Mario in a slightly new and different package. In some ways it feels like smaller ideas that they couldn't quite build an entire level or world out of ended up here. And that's not to say that it doesn't have its moments, it would just be difficult to recommend the game to somebody who is only picking this up to play Bowser's Fury. Even the gigantic Cat Mario vs. Super Saiyan Bowser is a little anticlimactic. It's just an oversized version of a normal boss fight. Now, this was a chance to do something cool, and outside of the initial spectacle, it feels a little run-of-the-mill, but that initial spectacle, by the way, goes from really cool to really frustrating very quickly, as Giga Bowser crops up every 5 to 6 minutes. So sometimes you might be right in the middle of trying to get a cat shine, and it messes everything up. While it does provide an opportunity to get cat shines that are only available during the Bowser raid, it was more of an inconvenience and disrupted my flow, which was something I didn't really care for. Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury is a great trip down memory lane for those who have taken the journey before, and a really fun adventure for everyone playing for the first time. That's not to say it's without its shortcomings, which I've mentioned before, another one being that the game itself is really short. The experienced Mario players will probably cruise through the first half of the game in a few hours, and I would wager that dedicated players can probably complete it in a weekend. Going for all the collectibles and the frequency in which you play multiplayer, of course, will extend your value. While I play solo to 100% everything, this is a game that I know I'm going to carry with me to gatherings for frantic couch co-op, as almost everybody who is unfamiliar with video games feels comfortable jumping into a Mario game. And in that sense, this game is hugely successful. Well, that's all for this very long look into Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. Let us know what you think of the game in the comments, or if you have any points in this review that you want to contend, I'm happy to hear that as well. If you have a chance, make sure you check out our other podcasts, news segments, and reviews. And for everything else Level 30 Games, you are in the right place, so I will see you in the next level.